Alright, so I recently finished reading this analog science fiction copy. This is from February 1983, which is before I was alive. A good 10 years before I was alive. I picked this up at a weird bookstore in Havre de Grace, Maryland. It's like a used bookstore, but also a comic book store, but also the guy has all of these movie props that are like actually from movies that he purchased, I guess throughout his life, and it's like hundreds of original costumes and different props that they used, and he just has them on display in his bookshop, and you can like walk around and look at them. And then also there's like a collectible section, and I feel like they sell magic cards, but now that I think about it, I'm not sure if that's true. It's kind of like it's got like a hobby shop kind of vibe to it, even if mostly what they sell there is books and then some DVDs and CDs and stuff. Anyway, he had a whole section of like a ton of backlog analog sci-fi, these little magazines that they make, and I picked a bunch up because I just like the covers, and a lot of them have like really famous sci-fi authors, that I recognize their names from books that they've written that I've either read or just that I've seen. And so I was curious about it, and I also knew that like a lot of sci-fi kind of got its start this way through these little magazines. A lot of famous sci-fi writers, this is how they started their careers. So I kind of wanted to see like what that scene was like more recently. Obviously, the 80s wasn't that recently, but I just wanted to see kind of where that went. And so I picked this up a long time ago, and I just read it now after all these years of it sitting on my bookshelf. And yeah, overall, I would say it was bad, or at least not good. I don't want to say it was bad, but the interesting thing about it is that some of it is really good. So the picture on the cover is actually from the title story, and that story, it's called Seeking by David R. Palmer, and that story is really cool. Until the very end where it's ruined. But until the very end, it's really well done. And I won't describe the whole thing in case you want to read it, because it's like a novella. And I do think it's worth a read. But I will tell you that it takes place in a post-apocalyptic society, in which there's been sort of like a new evolution on humanity to a point where there's like a new species that are no longer human. They're like the next evolved form. And our main character is this girl who's one of these newly evolved species, and she's young. I think she's like I want to say she's 11 maybe. And for most of the story, she is the only voice that exists in the story. And she's looking for other life forms in the world. She's sort of stranded. I won't explain why or anything, but she's stranded. She's looking for other life forms. But what I was really impressed about this is this author is like an older, seemingly straight dude, and he writes from this 11-year-old girl's perspective so well that there was no dissonance whatsoever. Like the whole time I was reading, it was so believable, the whole way this girl was talking. I loved her character. She was funny. She was the age of 11. It was portrayed perfectly, like sort of precocious and like some hints of almost teenageriness, but mostly kiddishness. It was so well done. The character development, I was kind of blown away by it. And then, in the last like 2 pages of the novella, it's completely ruined because another, I can't really say, but the last the last 2 pages are, they just kind of ruin the story, and not in any way that's like really offensive or anything, but like you have this perfectly crafted story with amazing character development, and the last 2 pages are like badly written and rushed, and yeah, cause it's just bad writing, and bad character development. So it was very frustrating. But I still, even with that being said, I still really suggest reading that one. And let me see which other. Honestly, some of these stories were so not memorable that I have to actually look at what they all were. Let's see. I'm kind of a person who reads things from cover to cover, even if it's like really silly to do so. So I even read like all these old advertisements that are in here, which was fun. There's like these old commercials for like different games from the same producers of Dungeons and Dragons. And then there's like a letter from the editor talking about his ideas for how we can discover more scientific breakthroughs. I don't know if you know this, but analog is sci-fi, yes, but it's also science fact. It's science fiction and science fact. And they, so some of the articles in here are just about science and math, which was interesting, and I didn't know that when I started reading it. Okay, yeah, so the next thing after that novella was something called Science Fact. And it was really just about new theories or new phenomena that don't really fit with the existing theories, and how those theories over time, as they're tested, either turn out not to be true or they turn out to be true. And when they do, it can often be like really disorienting for like the whole science community, because if something seems to be true but also doesn't fit with everything else that they have created, then it just kind of throws like the whole understanding of the world as we know into question, and they had to figure out what to do with it. So that was kind of interesting. And then, then there was another, this was a novelette, which, to be honest, I didn't know that there was a difference between, I've only heard of a novella, I didn't know about novelettes. I read that it was I don't remember anything about it. It was completely forgettable in every single way, shape, and form. It was called Murphy's Planet by Michael P. Cube McDowell. Let me go back to it just so I can maybe I can refresh my memory if I look at it. Yeah, so it's like they go to this planet on some mission, and the planet's like making everyone go crazy that goes there. So then they select this one guy because he's like a cool, collected guy who never loses his cool and looks at everything rationally. So he goes there, and then it messes with him too, but he's still largely fine. And then I guess they sort of discover that it's like alien. I don't know. It's aliens. Okay, the reason that the planet's making everyone go crazy is aliens, and they're like wary of humans colonizing their planet. So it's basically like an anti-colonialist short story, but it's really badly done, to a point where, and it's not like funny bad, because I was hoping for funny bad, but it's not funny bad. It's like, this is pointless and I'm wasting my time bad. Although it's not offensive, so I guess some points for that. And then there was a short story called Servant of the People by Frederick Pohl. Let me remind myself what that was. I believe that it was also... God, I don't even remember anything about this. Forgettable. Something else forgettable. Oh, this was like... Okay, so this was badly enough written that I didn't even really understand what was happening. Oh, wait, no. Okay, wait a second. I remember now. Dude, this is the problem with these. There's a lot of stuff in here that's just like... Maybe it's like just above mediocre. Like it's maybe you read it and you're like, oh, that was interesting. But like you're not going to remember most of what's in here. And that's just the way that it is. But this story was kind of cool. It was about robots. And it was about like, you know, a future in which the robots become, you know, so sentient that they have, you know, various rights, and they're in the middle of sort of getting more rights. And it's told from the perspective of this guy who's running for Congress, Senate, something, and his wife, and he's the incumbent, and he's been winning for a zillion years, and he's like 70 something, but he's running against a robot, and the robot is just going to do a better job campaigning than he is because it's a robot, so it's like doing a perfect job. But then there's kind of a twist at the end. I guess I'll tell you because I don't think you're going to read this, but if you think you will, you can skip over this part. But basically, the wife is really upset that the robot's doing so well, and she feels like it's an unfair advantage, and she actually confronts the robot. And what she discovers is that the robot isn't actually interested in winning. The robot is designed to please human beings, and so the robot is actually trying to relieve the husband of having to continue to run for public office since he's older and probably should retire and his health is in decline. So the robot is only just trying to help that guy that he's running against. And then the wife is basically like, you're not helping him because he's going to be really sad that he loses. And then the robot's like, oh my God, I didn't think of that. And then it's kind of like, it's not written explicitly, but it's kind of like obvious that the robot's now going to drop out of the race. And so you as the reader are just kind of left thinking like, well, they don't like, yes, they have free will because like they have their own feelings in this universe, but like as long as they're programmed to be workers in any way, shape, or form, they don't have free will. So, and that's like really messed up. So they're never like actually free, no matter how many rights are like passed for them, because they're not programmed to really be free. So that was kind of cool. But it wasn't that cool because I forgot it. And then, okay, wait. Then, oh no, okay. After that, there was like a short little science fact section about, oh no, this was funny. Okay. This was about a fake advertisement that they put out in, I guess, a back issue where, they were advertising something called Compu Organics, which is like an organic computer, but it was just humans. They were advertising humans, but they made it it was a joke, and they made it like cryptic and made it sound like it was like a product that they were selling. And most of the readers like caught on to the joke, and I guess mailed in also like joke parody responses of ordering different ones. They included some of the responses. A bunch of them were sexist, like people asking for like certain bodily specifications, which is just like, it's annoying that they wrote it but predictable, but it's more annoying that they published it. But I actually expected it to be worse, so I don't know if that's giving them credit or just sad about the state of the world. But then there was a few people who thought it was real, so that was funny. And then, let's see. And then there was this very long, insane, like literally just like balls to the wall, absurd continuation of a story that I guess has been published. The picture's really cool, so that's why I want to hold it up. Some of the pictures in this are just amazing. And so it's worth, I mean, it was worth buying this for like the Seeking story, and then these pictures are like, look at this. It's just, they're just great. But anyway, the last story in here, and it's not actually a novella because it's a serialized story that obviously I'm only reading the end of it. This is like the conclusion part of this, I guess, book. It's like somebody did a ton of drugs and then wrote this. And I'm gonna give you a lot of spoilers because I can't not, because it's just too funny. But if you don't want to hear them, if you plan on reading, what the hell is it called? If you plan on reading Roach World by Dr. Robert L. Forward, don't watch this part. But anyway, I don't know how these people, because like I said, I haven't read the earlier things that it was serialized from. I don't know how these people ended up on this planet, but there's some people, some humans. They're astronauts or space lieutenant. I don't know what they are, but they're space rangers or something. They're on this planet. They're on this ship. And they have like a base. They've set up a base, and then we have like two parties. Some are on the base, and some are in this ship. Anyway, the aliens that run this planet are actually, it's two planets. It's two planets that like rotate right next to each other, and they share, I think, a sun, and then their water occasionally like will leave one planet and go to the other. Anyway, in this dual planet system, the aliens are this like nebulous blob, right? Like a different colored sort of gaseous blobs, and they only do two things, okay? They either surf all day long on the water, okay? Like just surf away, like body surf, okay? Or when they're not surfing, they're like super geniuses, and but the way that they like think, like use their super genius powers, is that they turn their gaseous form into like a hyper concentrated solid, like a rock, and then the rock sinks to the bottom of the ocean, and then they stay that way at the bottom of the ocean in rock form until they've figured out whatever thing they were thinking about, right? So like the humans come, and they have all of this human knowledge about like mathematics and science that have happened here on Earth. And so they come with all these unsolved mathematical problems, and the little nebulous blob aliens are like really excited because it's like, oh, new math problems for us to try out. So they like take from the humans all these like really complex mathematical questions that we've never been able to answer as like a species, and they like rock up and sink to the bottom of the ocean, and then they'll spend like a couple days or a couple weeks like working through the problem, and then they come back up, and then they come back to the humans, and they're like, oh, we figured out the answer to your math problem, and that's kind of like all the aliens do. And a lot of this story is just like kind of funny and cute interactions between the animals and the people. It's very strange. There's one part that actually made me laugh a lot. There's one interaction where a human is trying to solve a math problem, and they start counting, and the little blobby alien is like, wait a second, you you use numbers to solve your math equations. And then, like, the human is like, well, yeah, like, of course. And then the alien's sort of like, but there's, like, an infinite number of numbers. Like, you could test an equation for numbers, right? Various numbers for the rest of your life, and you'd still not even have scratched the surface of all the numbers because there's an infinite number of numbers. So that's, like, a really bad way to do math. And that just made me laugh a lot. And then they didn't explain how they do math. That was just left that way. So that story was insane. And then after they have these, like, nice kind of cutesy interactions, they then have an emergency. The emergency is kind of boring. They almost get drowned, I guess, and they spend the rest of this ending of this book figuring out how to survive. The aliens go away, so they don't get saved by the aliens or anything. They just kind of boringly figure it out on their own. And you really don't care about the characters. Maybe that's because I'm just reading this one part of it. But so that part was kind of boring and weird. But, like, this story was more like funny bad versus the one that I was telling you about earlier that's just, like, mediocre bad. So that was fun. And then that's pretty much it. The only other thing, there's, some little, like, fan mail, and then responses to the fan mail. Those were kind of cute. And then the end is just, like, advertisements. And that's it. Overall, I would say that it's fun to read probably one of these little backlog issues, like an older analog or different sci-fi magazine in your lifetime. I would not have bought 8 of them or 9 of them or 12 of them like I did. But I'm on a quest to read all the books in my house. So I'm sort of stuck reading them eventually. But I don't recommend reading more than one of these, because I would just say that it's more fun for the experience of reading it than it is really good or fun. Yeah, I guess that's it. This is my first time doing this. Yeah. Alright. Bye. Okay, wait. Like I said, this is my first time doing this, and after I said goodbye, I remembered something very funny about the ridiculous story with the blobby nebulous people, that I wanted to mention because I think it's ridiculous. All of the aliens that are characters are named, and their names are bizarre. One of them is named Roaring Hot Vermilion. That's the alien's name, is Roaring Hot Vermilion. Then there's another alien called Clear White Whistle. That's like more normal, I guess. Then there's one called Warm Amber Resonance. And then there's another one, another named one called Bitter Green Fizz. I just thought that was insane. And then the way that their names are written, I don't know if you can see this, but like each alien, their name is separated by like a different symbol. So like Roaring Hot Vermilion is like the little asterisk, and then Clear White Whistle is like an apostrophe, and then Warm Amber Resonance is the @ symbol, and then this one is the hashtag. And then every time that they speak in the book, like when it's their lines, instead of like when the humans speak, it's in quotes like it normally would be. But when the aliens speak, it's like buttressed by the same symbol as like the one that separates their name. Anyway, I just had to say that. That's it. Okay, goodbye for real.